Hi Stampers, Jackie Bolhuis with Clumpin' Stampers here, and I have some quick little tips and tricks for you, probably a little bit more on the last card, to help you with your Painted Harvest cards that are in the card collection in the online class, as well as the card kit. Now some of you got the card kit, and if you do, all of your pieces are pre-cut for you. If not, you just have the tutorial. It gives you all of your dimensions to make it very easy for you to cut all the pieces that you need. Now, before I start talking about each of the cards, I just want to tell you, when you start looking at the stamp set, you will notice in my instructions quite often I will say stamp the bold image or stamp the detail image. What I am referring to with your sunflower, you have your more bold image, and then this is what I call the detailed one. It's more detailed, and that's always going to go on top of our bold. Our bold will be lighter with a darker color and the detailed on top of it. Same thing goes with the fern. We have the bold and the detailed, and also our little leaf here, our bold and our detailed. So I wanted to give you that little tip. Now, let's go ahead and look at the cards one at a time. So let's talk about number 1 first. And the very first thing you're going to want to do is stamp this sunflower that we're going to cut out. And as the directions say, we'll start with our bold, like I said earlier too, and we're going to ink it up. Sorry, my table wobbles a little bit. And we're just using a piece of scrap paper here, and we will stamp our bold one. Now, if you have not stamped with the stamp set already, you will notice that it's not real solid. It is made to give you that watercolor look, and it's going to be darker in spots and lighter in spots, and that's the way it's supposed to stamp. And it's kind of blah like that, but it really comes to life once you stamp the more detailed one on top. Now, I am not 100% sure if there is a right or a wrong way to place this one on top of it, because if there is, it's too hard for this simple brain to figure out. So what I do is I ink it up and I just kind of line up. I'm looking through the center there, trying to see that center underneath, and I stamp on top of it. And I have yet to have one turn out that I go, oh, I wish it was twisted or turned. It's looked great every time. So don't stress over trying to line things up real perfectly. So let's look at our card again. After I've stamped this, I just cut it with the scissors. I know, sad face, we don't have framelits for this. We're so spoiled. But I basically just kind of rough cut around all of the points that were out there. There's really, again, no right or wrong way. Then we have our ferns that are stamped. I just took them in the corner of my card, and I did the bold in the lighter pear pizzazz, and then the more detailed stamp, I just came on top of it with the garden green. I added a couple little dots just to add a little dimension to it, I guess. And that's it, and our greeting on there. Now for this little piece of ribbon, it is just wrapped around the back and scotch taped onto the back, and then a little piece of linen thread is just wrapped around it and tied in a bow. So that's all you need to know for card number 1. Card 2, I use the Layered Leaves embossing folder. If you don't have that one, use whatever embossing folder you have to add some texture. But I just stamped 3 of my leaves onto the scrap paper, again with pear pizzazz and garden green, layering them on top of each other. They don't have to match up absolutely perfect. That's the beauty of the stamp set. Once you've stamped them, punch them out. And then the acorns as well, those you got to grab the scissors again, stamp them out. And then when I put this one together, I do have dimensionals under the leaves, the acorns, and my circle. The mini dimensionals work awesome. They will fit under all 3 little leaves to keep those nice and popped up, as well as on the acorns. And you don't have to worry about trying to cut your bigger dimensions small enough to fit. But pretty simple card, but I think it has a very nice look to it. So there is your card number 2. Let's talk about card number 3. This is kind of a fun fold. When it opens up, our front flap is actually shorter than the bottom one, so when it's closed, you see our flower is stamped on the inside. So what I want to do is show you how I cut these pieces out. It's essentially just a 1-inch strip off each side. So regular size card base, so it's 8.5 by 5.5. And the first thing we want to do is just score it at 4 1/4. Okay, so we know where to fold this. So we'll get our fold in there, then we can see that good. And I'm just using a different color cardstock so that you can see the numbers on my cutter here a little bit better. So what we want now is a 1-inch strip out of here and a 1-inch strip out of there. So I am going to line this up on the number 1 over on the right side. I love this cutter that we have measurements over here and we have measurements over there. So we'll put it at 1. okay, right there. And then we're going to bring our cutting blade, okay, which is the darker colored one. And I'm going to start right here at 4 1/4. This little arrow, I can match it up. You can see right there, there's the 4 1/4 measurement. So I'm going to match that arrow up with that, which also matches up with the score line. You should be able to see the scoring line across. So we're going to put it right there, kind of push it down so that it penetrates through that cardstock, and then we just push it up. And now we've cut this piece, and you can use your cutter, or I found it's easier just to take your snips and cut that piece out. So we'll just flip it over, do the same thing, line it up over here at the 1, and then we'll close it up, and we'll put our cutting blade right at 4 1/4 and press it upward, and we'll just snip that little piece off. And there is our card base. And then you'll notice here, I just have a piece of 4 by 5 1/4, very vanilla in the inside. And when I stamped these flowers, I made sure they were, you know, nice and off the edges so that you could see them. This greeting is not in the Painted Harvest stamp set. I just grabbed a different stamp set I had. I think I have it listed in the instructions. Special Celebrations, I believe it's called. So you could make this card really whatever you want, or use one of the greetings that we have in the Painted Harvest. Then this flower is stamped like the first one and cut out. Some leaves that are punched out. I have just a little piece of the copper trim underneath the flower. This copper trim is pretty sweet because this is what it looks like, and it ties a nice bow. You can leave it just like this, or what I did for my card, I actually played around and I pulled it apart. So you can stretch it out. I just kind of kept playing and got it pulled all apart. And then when I laid it down underneath here, you can see if you can pick that up there, how it's just kind of ratty almost and raggedy, but it adds some nice texture in there. Piece of the Wood Grains Designer Series paper underneath, and there's our card number 3. You ready to get a little messy? Card number 4 is a fun, little bit messy watercolor technique. I've done this before in classes, and I love the look of it. Just something different. It's going to take away the sharp crispness of your flowers on this one. So we're going to set that aside and get started with it. We have a piece of watercolor paper. You need to make sure you're using watercolor paper when you do something like this because of all the moisture we're going to put on it. And you need a way to spritz your paper and get it wet. I've got the Stampin' Up! Stampin' Spritz. These are great. I have several of these laying around because I'm always spraying water on something. Otherwise, any type of spray bottle that you have, just so you can get some nice even water spread on here. So we'll start by spraying it, and we're doing it pretty liberally. You want quite a bit of water on there. It's pooling up a little bit. And then we're going to take our bold image, and we will stamp it. Hold it down there a little bit. Get some good pressure off of it because you want that ink to really come off and transfer onto your paper. Now, kind of the beauty of this technique is every single time you do it, it is going to turn out totally different. It really depends on how much water is on that paper, and you're going to get different looks. And you can even, if you move this around, you can make those colors run and bleed a little bit more if you want to. But there was our crushed curry. Now it's still wet, and we want to take the pumpkin pie and put that on top of it. Again, I don't know that there's really a right or a wrong way as far as the direction of this. Now, when you stamp this one, if your colors don't seem to be bleeding and running as much as you want them to, you can go ahead and give it a little more spray. Okay, put a little more water on there. And again, if you want them a little bit more distinct, put less water, okay? Then you can blend them. Then let's see, we'll take our green, and for this one, I am using just the bold image. I'm not two-step stamping it, but I want to show you a little trick. I've shared this before, but you may not have picked up on it. My leaves, I actually cut the stems off. I can put it back on here when I want to and stamp it whole. It's kind of the beauty of the photopolymer stamps. But for this one, I really wanted those leaves butted up to my flowers. Okay, so we'll put that one there. And I didn't want that big long stem. So that's why I cut it. Now, if you feel like you have too much water on there, you can actually blot some of it off. I was pretty wet there on that leaf. Let's go ahead and we can even stamp another one in there. Okay, I just have a tissue here, but that will If your water is really pooling and it's too much, just blot some of it off. And again, if you want your leaves to bleed a little bit more, spray them with a little bit more water. So it's kind of a fun thing. We're just really, you're playing with the different stamps and different water. And like I said, your look will come out completely different each time. So we'll look at my finished one again. We've just layered it after we make sure that paper is good and dry before you go to stick it together. And then this is just a piece of our burlap ribbon that's stuck underneath with dimensionals, our circle here that our greeting is stamped on. So fun technique on the background just to give it a different look. So I hope you enjoyed the 4 cards in this class, in this card collection. Make lots of them and send lots of them. That's what we're all about. So as always, if you have any questions on any of the cards or the techniques, make sure and let me know. I am here to help you any way that I can. Enjoy being creative with these projects. Have a stamp happy day.